I've been looking forward to this show, Ken. I used to be so Catholic, small c, in my approach that I would never commit to liking one coffee over another. After all the coffees I've had, I think Sumatra is, for some reason, I keep coming back to it. It's something that really fascinates me. It's a coffee I don't fully understand, however, which is why it's a perfect show for us to work on.
The character of Sumatras is a bit of a mystery. I mean, we know, as I'll go on, that it's the processing method, how the fruit is removed from the bean and how they're dried, that's what unique to Sumatra. It's not the air, it's not the dirt, it's the processing method, and has nothing to do with tree variety, because there's a whole range of tree varieties in Sumatra, and none of them particularly well known for their distinctive profile. So it's the processing method. I think there's a mystery, and unraveling the mystery has been a sort of adventure in specialty coffee. And of course, many people don't know about the unraveling. It's kind of a misunderstood process, but this process called wet hulling, which we'll be talking about. At any rate, I think that the mystery of that is one fascination for specialty coffee people, and for consumers, I think it's just that Sumatras traditionally taste very different from, say, Central American origins or most African origins. They taste really different from almost all other origins. It made it easy to be a connoisseur. Say, oh, this is a Sumatra. I remember many times doing that, and everybody's so surprised. Well, of course it's a Sumatra, because there's no other coffee that tastes like it. Let me just clarify that other islands in Indonesia, other growing regions, do wet hulling also. But the process is most associated with Sumatra.
So is a Papua New Guinea, or let's say a Sulawesi, they wet hulled as well?
Well, perhaps I can show a map and talk about that. Is that possible?
Yeah, sure, sure.
Pulled out this rather funky map here, because part of the mystery of Sumatra is that tourists don't go there except to see orangutans. I mean, it's a fascinating and wonderful place, but it just hasn't hit the circuit, as it were. All of this is Indonesia. From the border here between the Indonesia province and Papua New Guinea, which is the green. All the yellow part here is all Indonesia. Sumatra is the big island over here. Java, of course, where coffee was first grown by the Dutch, and which gave its nickname to coffee, is right in here. This is Java. And then Bali, the only place that Americans go, or anybody goes to Indonesia usually, is to go to Bali, which is right at the tip here. Throughout these islands, there's wet hulled coffee produced, but it's a specialty in particular of Sumatra. And now it's being done in Java again, some very fine wet hulled Javas. The wet hulling creates aromatic notes, complexes, that are largely unpredictable, or predictable within a fairly wide range. Wet hulling is processing wrinkle. It's basically the wet method is the classic method of removing fruit and drying coffee. And it involves immediately after picking or soon after removing all of the fruit residue and leaving only a skin that's called a parchment skin. There's also the silver skin, which is very thin and comes off during roasting. But the parchment skin is a kind of a woody layer with no sugars and really doesn't affect the taste of the coffee at all. So typically, all the soft fruit residue is removed from the coffee, but the parchment skin is left on. And it's dried, the coffee is dried in parchment, as we say, in the parchment skin. And then it's often stored in the parchment skin. The parchment dries out. It's kind of a crumbly layer. So it pops off easily. You take it off with your hands. So it's stored often in parchment skin, and then it's removed before shipping. And that process creates the classic clean tasting coffee. The nature of the coffee fruit as it's imparted to the seeds tends to be clear. So if we have a very beautiful wet processed coffee, we get some of the quality of the actual fruit, which is sweet tart fruit tastes, and we get floral notes that seem to be carried into the seed. All of that's very clean, and if there are chocolate notes that are brought out by the roast, that's fine. There are, of course, always caramelly notes and so on. But if you have a coffee that's not clean, you get other notes. In the case of the wet-hulled coffee, the parchment skin is removed while the coffee is still wet. That's why it's called wet. So the coffee is dried without the parchment skin. And that seems like a simple, that shouldn't have much effect. But it is, in effect, what creates the taste of a Sumatra.
Ken, nobody does this outside of Sumatra or the Indonesia, certainly. Is that what you're saying? It's just not common
Yes.
anywhere else?
No. I mean, it's done as an experiment. I mean, the Chinese have tried it. I suppose you could maybe find on the green market a wet-hulled Chinese coffee. I certainly have had friends, kind of researchers, who have tried it. People in Hawaii, where it's easy to do. And I've tasted coffees that taste very much like Sumatra that were experimentally processed. I think the problem is that in order to remove that parchment skin, which is still moist, from the beans without damaging them, requires a special machine with kind of rubber nubs. And so people don't invest in that machine. And that, of course, that's the reason why Sumatra beans often look a little funky, is because they get nicked up a little bit in that process. Sumatras tend to be dried in stages. First, before they remove the parchment skin, then after, usually in a mill up in the mountains, and then the final drying is done in the port, usually of Medan. What you get, technically, is mustiness, like mildew. So a bad Sumatra, in which this process has not worked, tastes and smells like mildewed clothes in the basement.
Well, look,
When
we've all
in fact,
done that. I've forgotten to press it's as simple for me as I've forgotten to press the button to start it.
Right,
I've got everything,
right.
all
To
the
start
settings
it.
right.
That's right. That's right. You open it up and you expect this nice,
Yeah.
fresh smelling, and instead you get the mildew.
Right.
And the technical term in traditional coffee business is musty. That mustiness, combined with other characteristics of the coffee, produces this big range of interesting notes. Earthy, right?
Yes.
In other words, it tastes like the smell of, say, fresh humus, clay, like that fresh scent of clay if you're working with clay on a potter's wheel. It's also associated with a note, a very fine and elegant note called petrichor. Petrichor is the scent of earth that's dry and been baked by the sun and then rained on. The smell of the fresh rain. So almost everybody has smelled it. They just didn't know that they were smelling petrichor.
Wow.
And so if you have a light rain after on a hot day or warm day, you'll get that wonderful fresh odor. And the very best Sumatras probably today, you maybe have this petrichor note. When you combine the elegant mustiness with other notes that are inherent in Arabica coffee, you get surprises. A lovely palette of often surprising notes. So that's the story of Sumatra and wet-hulled coffee.
A couple of questions. Are Sumatras a year-round coffee? It seems like I can get Sumatras in June. I can get them in any month. I can't think of a period that I really can't find them.
Yes, they're available, tend to be available all year round. I'm not really sure whether this is just a reflection of how the industry operates, but I do know that is striking in the Lintung area, at any rate, where I spend a lot of my time. I would see branches with flowers at the tip of the branch and ripe coffee fruit at the other end, and various stages of development in between on one branch. I don't think this has been studied formally, so apologies to the scientists who will eventually study this, but it appears to me that in the Lintung area, or the Mandieling, the area where the classic Sumatras come from, simply a lot of overcast weather, misty, overcast weather. I think that is kind of a slow haul harvest. I'm sure that we'll have studies that will explain all this. In the Aceh area, ACEH, the other main growing area for Sumatra coffees, the seasons are a little clearer. It's more of a conventional coffee industry in Aceh. Nevertheless, in Aceh they do beautiful wet-hulled coffees also. So I think maybe it has to do with the weather and the maturing, because there are some coffee growing regions, at least until global warming, where there's a very decisive harvest.
Yes.
In Brazil, it used to be fairly dry or normal weather, and then there'd be a very decisive rainy season and a very decisive flowering. Acres or hectares are covered with flowering trees, and then the fruit ripens all at about the same time. Which is why in Brazil they used to get away with strip picking, because the middle part of the branch would be all red, and why they're able to use machine harvesting now. But Sumatra definitely has a gradual flowering and fruiting.
Well, are you telling me that the different regions, for instance, the Aceh, Lintong, Mandailing, they're all pretty much the same varieties of coffee, tree varieties meaning, and really the similar climates, but the wet hulling and their local distinctions will work together to give them a different taste?
Well, let me just show the Aceh. Here we go again.
Okay, good. Let's go in on this.
Aceh region is at the very tip of Sumatra. The culture is a little distinctive because it's entirely Muslim, whereas the rest of Sumatra is not. It tends to have tribal religions or Christianity. The Lintung area, there's a little blue here. That's Lake Toba, an enormous, beautiful lake. Yeah. And that's also a bit of a tourist attraction. And around Lake Toba in the highlands is the Lintung area. Lintung actually equivalent of a county called Lintung Nihuta, where that's the center of it. Coffees of that style are grown all around in the highlands around Lake Toba. Those are the traditional Sumatra coffees, and that's where the wet hulling was first discovered by those of us who went there. Mandailing is also a place, but it's really has become, in the tradition in the late decades of the 20th century, it became associated with this style of coffee, the wet-hulled style. So in a sense, somebody says Mandailing, they're really describing a coffee style.
Rather than actual location with a GPS finding it. Okay.
Right, exactly. Because you have a lot of Aceh coffees that are traded as Mandailing because they're wet-hulled and because they fit the type. And because it helps sell the coffee, helps identify with it, they'll call it Mandailing. It's because they're all shipped through Medan, the same port. I'm sure the exporters, somebody says they want a Mandailing and they got Aceh and it's a pretty good one, they'll send it on as Mandailing. So maybe not, but not anymore.
So is that done? Let's as long as I want to gossip a little bit about that. Just and everyone know that we're not. None of this can we know for sure in each case, of course. But is it well known in the coffee industry that coffees are sometimes labeled for whatever gets them the best price, not the market.
Well, traditionally in the coffee industry, I think this has been true.
Yeah.
It's increasingly not true because we have the traceability movement, as you know, where the particular group of, call them high-end, third-wave roasters, are attempting to be as particular as possible.
Right.
Now, a lot of times they're not that particular. They try to be, but they can't get the information, and perhaps they have to fudge a little bit in their descriptions. But obviously, today, if you're buying fine top-end coffee on the internet, you want to read about, you're accustomed to reading about the producer and the tree variety and some of the circumstances, maybe a heartwarming story about third-generation grower and somebody came back from college to run the farm. We're used to that kind of sales language, but certainly there's a value in traceability. In other words, there's more money for a traceable coffee. So what I wanted to say about Ache is that in Ache, there's a more conventional arrangement of the industry. In Lintung, you have the small producers do the first steps of processing the coffee, growing and processing. It's collected by people called collectors. And the collectors often have a relationship with all the farmers. It's an understanding. And the collectors then take the coffee to these mills, owned usually by exporters, and then the next process, the wet hulling and drying happens, and then it's sent down to the port in Medan. That's the supply chain that created classic wet hulled Sumatras. In Aceh, that also occurs, the same arrangements, but also in Aceh there are more cooperatives. It's more of a conventional arrangements. And also they produce, traditionally in Aceh, they produce a wide range of processing methods. So if you have a cooperative with a centralized mill and a sophisticated guy who's been to Texas A&M or something and has come back to, so he'll be familiar with the possibilities of wet processing, dry processing, or natural. So often the wet hulling will be a choice. The exporting arrangements are more direct with much greater possibility of traceability. So Aceh is a different industry. It looks different too. It's kind of mountains around Lake Tawar, which is a much smaller lake than Lake Toba. It's usually grown in managed shade. In Lintung, it's a very raggedy looking landscape. You have fruit trees scattered around coffee trees and other crops, and because it's all small producers. The coffee is almost never shaded, partly because I think they have this tendency to have overcast. But the other thing that's happened to the wet hulled is they've gotten more refined. Because before it was almost like a folk method, right? It just happened. That's the way we do it. Now, the way we do it is clear to many people that it's valuable and it's different. And they had better do it carefully. In the past, I think, when we were talking First Taste of the Sumatra, I think it was really the skill of the coffee buyer to find the good lots where this sort of creative mustiness, this earthy, malty kind of taste worked, and would dismiss the ones that tasted like wet old clothes. Increasingly, I think today, the people on the ground in Sumatra are refining the procedure so that they're producing more consistent wet hulled lots. That's my impression.
I have another question, and that is, since, as you said, the wet hulled method is common to a number of coffees from Indonesia, why, when I've had a Bali, for instance, or Papua New Guinea or Sulawesi, why is it that I generally taste a very different coffee than when I get, particularly a Papua New Guinea, than when I get a Sumatra.
Well, I realized that I got this map out to clarify the distinction between Indonesian coffees and Papua New Guinea.
Oh, okay.
So Papua New Guinea is a separate country from Indonesia, and it has a separate history. The reason was a German colony, this part of Irian Jaya, I think it's called, this province of Indonesia. It had a different colonial rulers and consequently developed a different coffee culture. Papua New Guinea was, I think, British. It was basically administered by Australia. The coffee industry grew up with Australian nationals who were developing it. They, from the beginning, did a clean, washed cup in Papua New Guinea.
Yes.
That was the goal. I mean, there are little producers who do it themselves. They hold a coffee with a rock. I've seen it. But the goal is to do a wet process. I mean, that's the type that Papua New Guinea is identified with. So it's completely different from Indonesia. There's no connection, except there's a part of Indonesia on the same island as Papua New Guinea.
I will report to you, and I don't want to do too many. I try not to do any spoiler alerts, but since I picked out all the coffees, I want to tell you, I actually ran into a couple of roasters that themselves weren't sure whether it was wet hulled and they have it on their website as washed coffees today, samples. When I pressed them, they would say, "Oh, we think it is," and they said, "Yeah, it is probably a wet hulled," but they have it listed on their website as just washed. Seems like there's a little bit of, sometimes they use the terms interchangeably, even though, as you say, they are very different processes.
Right. Well, I think the term that a lot of people in the industry who are meticulous try to use is washed and wet hulled.
Okay.
That's more accurate.
Yeah.
Right. In other words, wet hulling is a part of the washed process.
I'm really thirsty. How about you?
Yeah, I am too. And Jason just brought the first coffee in.
To the brim.
I'm ready.
Okay,
I'm ready.
Good.
Well, what do you think? Wet hulled or washed? Washed and wet hulled, or just washed?
I think wet hulled.
Wet hulled. Yeah. It strikes me as it's a very clean. I don't get any mildew for sure, or mustiness.
Yeah, I know a roaster. It's not this roaster, but I know a roaster who's very proud of the fact that he tries to find Sumatras that are less earthy. He said, I know they still have the cedar, a little bit, and I want that. But he said, I definitely think there are some Sumatras that are too earthy.
It's lovely. It has a kind of in structure, it has a kind of round, deep sort of sensation.
Yeah.
There's definitely the most wonderful sweet cedar.
Isn't it?
I'm getting.
Yes, I know.
Around and underneath is all of these other subtle, there's of course a caramel, but a kind of like what we used to call a kid dark caramel.
Yes.
Definitely a kind of a cocoa-ish.
Getting cocoa, absolutely.
Dry chocolate. That beautiful, sweet cedar note is so dominant that I'm having trouble. I love it. I'm enjoying it so much. I'm trouble getting around it.
Yeah, what else is there? It's really eye-catching.
I think there are floral top notes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some low-toned, sweet, obviously all flowers are sweet. A lily, I guess. Some kind of lily. We'll be able to tell better when we taste it, but there's probably a kind of a savory, kind of a brothy note underneath at the base. Oh, it's beautiful. Because it has a big range, you notice? It has, if you were doing a musical analogy, it has kind of a bass note, kind of brothy, savory character. And then it goes right up to flowers with the cedar right. Sweet cedar right in the middle. And chocolate. The chocolate seems to be coming out to me. What fruit? Do you get any fruit?
Fruit.
I want to say prunes, but prunes are kind of a boring fruit. So I don't want to say it because it's too pleasant for prune.
No marketer in the world uses it.
I'm thinking that probably plum.
Plum.
Even though that's
Plum would be good. Yeah.
And I think it's honest. It's in there.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
Okay.
It's
All right, let's give it a sip. You couldn't wait.
Oh man. Wow.
Lovely.
Just wow.
You know, it occurred to me that the change that we often note between the nose and the cup is reflected by the fact that when you taste, you're still getting the nose, obviously, because you're breathing the aromatics. But you're also getting the hardwired basic tastes. And one of them in coffee is always bitterness. Coffee, apparently, even there are sugars in the cup, that's not how we get sweet. We get sweet from associations with flowers and fruit and so on, or chocolate, other things that are sweet. But you definitely get bitterness. And so you get the bitterness gives it authority, but for me, dampens the aromatics.
Man, it's got that tang of bitterness, but it's certainly not making it any less attractive. It does, in fact, it just something about it makes it seem substantial.
Yeah, gives it authority.
Yeah. Authority.
And there's a little bit of astringency, drying sensation. Mm-hmm. I'm not a fan of the dry sensation. I don't like dry white table wines much, for example. But other people like it, and it certainly gives this cup authority. And again, I think one of the ways that you can cite as proof of quality in a coffee is the finish.
Oh yeah.
I'm getting a very nice finish.
Very nice.
In this coffee. And like the cup, it's deep, resonant. Yeah. It keeps going. It tends to sweeten, of course, as it prolongs. Yeah, lovely. Classic, I think, what somebody now would expect from a Sumatra, not what somebody would have expected 20 years ago. Updated. I hope it's wet hulled.
I'm not purposefully setting you up. I mean, I looked for wet hulled because I knew how much you like them, and I knew you, and I have come to realize it is much of what I like in them.
You have any other comments on it before we look at it?
No, other than it's just got and the cedar somehow turns into the cup, into the taste buds. I know my tongue and my nose, they feed off each other, but they're not identical. Yeah, to me, it's a very, very nice coffee that's got, and people typically tell me Sumatras aren't bright enough for them. I don't know. I don't find that. I find a coffee like this is really nicely balanced.
Mm-hmm. Talking about the technical term often is acidity.
Acidity, yeah.
And I would agree that there's enough brightness or acidity, that sweet tart sensation, there's enough of that to keep it alive, give it resonance and depth, make it vivacious and alive. We haven't talked about the body because, of course, another standard trait that people cite for Sumatra's substantial body or mouthfeel.
Sumatra coffees, a sense of weight about them.
Let's not generalize into the cup, go from the cup to the generality. And I would say that, this has a kind of a viscosity, sort of syrupy character that plays well with the Sumatra stereotype.
Yeah, I think it's revelation time.
The roastery. Okay, Sumatra Mendiling, LT.
Yeah.
What is that, light?
It
says washed.
Yeah. It's definitely says washed. Although I spoke to them, and this was one of the roasters, I said, it says washed, but is it, I think in some other content there, let's see, it says raisin and spice. Okay, here we go. Brown spice cocoa, bold with a creamy body, rich and smoky in the finish. Okay, I'll go with that. And then, but I didn't find anything about wet hold on it, but let me see if on the back, I noticed we've got a label pasted over the back. Well, I don't think there was any content on the back, actually. They said, they thought It could be. In fact, I think the person came back to the phone and said they told it makes sense now. They said to me it's washed and wet hulled. So in reality, they are doing what you say they should be doing, and I just got confused because I'm like, well, which is it? Come on, which is it?
Yeah, I think it's a very, very carefully performed wet hulled coffee. It must be difficult for the producers to get the right balance. They probably want a clean cup, but they want to keep some of the complexity and innuendo, the ambiguity of wet hulled style. They have to tread carefully, but whoever did this one did a good job.
Dennis, can you go in on this a little bit more? I just want to point out something that I do know something about, just for a moment, just a moment of wasted airtime. I do know this. This is a DC-3 or a C-47, a Douglas commercial airliner. I might not know whether it's wet hulled or...
You know your airplanes.
Sure know my aeroplanes, yeah. Well, I think we're off to a good start as far as I'm concerned. The sample A is great. If you want a cup of it, it's fantastic.
It's a much higher toned coffee for me.
Yeah.
There are a lot of, in the higher registers, fruit, some flowers. I can find the cedar, but it's backgrounded. Actually, I think it's more prominent. It's more fir, a kind of a less aromatic wood. Pleasant. The fruit has a kind of a, not like black cherry, some fruit like a kind of a low-tone, juicy fruit. There's a sweet nut that I could cite. Kind of a cashew, one of my favorites.
Cashew.
You smell that? It's kind of a sweet, a buttery nut. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going for pistachio, actually. It's closer.
Well, I think pistachio is more distinctive, but at any rate, it's a very pleasing nut, sweet and buttery. And I think the nut's much more prominent than any cedar or any kind of wood we might cite. I think the flowers are very contexted into the fruit, so I'm thinking it's less floral. I mean, the first cup had amazing range, and this one, the range is it's higher toned, and the range is a little not as wide. So that makes me think it's more. It's closer to a classic washed cup. Oh, I'm getting leather now, the fresh leather.
Leather.
It's hard to, now that all the purse manufacturers are doing vegan leather, meaning vinyl, I guess. I was shopping for a purse for a Christmas present, and they all said vegan leather. I said, oh, I know what that is. Probably a lot more sophisticated manufacturer than the old vinyl. You don't get that wonderful fresh leather smell from those objects, that's for sure. But I'm definitely getting an old-fashioned fresh leather note. Boy, the fruit is very nice.
Yeah.
And you were talking in your introduction about spice, and so this has a spice, doesn't it? I'm almost thinking like peppercorns. If you put pepper, like maybe white peppercorns, I don't know, it's a different kind, green peppercorns, you put them in a pepper mill, and you get that wonderful rush of aroma, picking up some of that possibility. Let's taste. I'm thinking this is a good candidate for a orthodox washed coffee, as opposed to, it could be a very, very clean wet hulled, but in which they overdid the clean side of the process. But
I'll have to look it up.
Well, we'll see in a minute, but let's just reflect. It really simplifies, doesn't it? The aromatics tend to dissipate or consolidate, and you get just basic taste of a classic coffee taste, kind of balanced acidity. I'm getting that, what I'm calling a cherry, like a black cherry note. I think it's carrying very well into the cup. Not getting much flowers, getting the cashew, but mainly a kind of a nice, round, balanced fruit. Stone fruit, cherry. And the cherry carries very nicely into the finish. But again, everything's simpler, isn't it, than
Yeah.
A. And again, I would go for, I guess cedar, but I might go for fir as a wood.
Fir,
No, it's not prominent.
Not coming through.
Yeah.
I smelled
It's,
it, not tasting it.
I'm getting the nut,
Cashew
some
is
kind of
coming through.
cashew,
Yeah.
but the fruit very much, not much in the way of flowers. And it's a pleasant finish, but not very interesting. It's a balanced finish, Sample A, there was astringency in the finish, in the cup and in the finish. And I'm not getting that with this one. A balanced kind of sweetness, quiet acidity, that's a positive. But it doesn't have all of the aromatic complexities that we picked up in cup A. Well, what is it, Kevin? Let's see. That's a surprise. Mutu Batak. Batak is the name of the cultural group that live around Lake Toba, and who essentially they evolved the wet hulled method. I mean, it evolved in their area, and they became associated with it.
Yeah.
Well, he says cacao, cedar, and bell pepper, and Clatch has a long history with good Sumatra. So I don't know. Certainly, go for a little more funk next time, Mike, when you pick your Sumatra. Cup A was certainly more idiosyncratic and more distinctive, and had a wider range of sensation than this Clatch Cup B. Yeah, I just remembered that Mike Perry, who heads up Clatch, actually was in Sumatra about 3 years ago. I think. He actually, one of the few coffee people I know who's actually visited. Unfortunately, the typical visit to a coffee growing area is that you're herded around by some tour leader who really wants to get you to lunch as soon as they can. At any rate, I'd say go for a little more funk in your Sumatra, Mike. It's a very pleasant coffee, and some people would prefer it. It doesn't have a very bright acidity, so somebody who buys it doesn't like a bright cup would probably be satisfied by it. It has a pretty good mouthfeel, right? Not as viscous as A. A nice mouthfeel. Less Sumatraness.
Interesting.
You like this one?
It's distinctive from the other two.
Sample A had a beautiful, sweet, elegant, complex cedar. This one has a little bit of a flat old board wood. I sure hope this is not somebody whom I love and admire in the industry, but
this is
it is distinctive. I mean, go ahead.
Are you saying the Christmas tree should be taken out when it smells like this?
Well, a Christmas tree is pine. It has a tremendous aroma.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get that kind of pine in coffee, but not very often.
No, well, I was trying to make a bad joke. It isn't. I'm not getting the cedar burst that I was with the first one particularly.
Now I'm getting some stuff. It's so hard when you're doing sequence of coffees.
I know.
You get enchanted by one kind of profile, and then you're unconsciously comparing later cups with that first profile that captured your attention and support. So in this case, I think there's stuff going on here that I didn't notice at first.
Yeah.
It's a low-toned cup. I mean, so a lot of people who don't like acidity, I think, would respond positively to the lack of brightness. On the other hand, somebody who likes a classic cup would probably find this a little dull character, and finding all kinds of interesting sweet notes. Maybe cinnamon.
There,
There's again a kind of a nut. Could be. I mean, if you could sort of glamorize it as pistachio. it goes towards leans towards pistachio. Now that I have the nut, I can move past the wood, push the wood away, and go with the nut. And there are flowers in there, flowers that have been cut and sitting around for a little while, but they're still flowers. They're pleasant flowers. Maybe a hint of your lilac, your Chicago lilac.
Yeah, definitely.
There's caramel.
Yeah.
I'm not getting any chocolate. Maybe, yeah.
I'm
kind of a
getting some
milk chocolate.
Yeah.
Caramelly milk chocolate. Yeah. Now I'm down in those notes. I'm ignoring the kind of flat woodiness that I got at first. A lot of times we talk at Coffee Review, we get a rubber note. And Jason in particular often notes that it's similar, there's a similarity to orchids with rubber. So I'm getting a note like, aromatic rubber.
Aromatic rubber. Interesting.
You have anything more in the nose?
It's too bad, in a way, you know how you can use water to cleanse your palate between, tasting cups of coffee, but there's nothing for your nose that I know of.
Right.
And I am enamored still with previous samples. And
well, I just tasted it, Kevin, and I think that the roast is an issue. It's a slightly darker roast than maybe much darker. I don't know. It could be the roast, and the roast could be baked a little, and that's where that little flatness that's sitting on a lot of the aromatics is coming from.
Yeah. Well, that would affect it.
Yeah. Now in the cup, there's a sort of a dampening on what this coffee wants to be. And I was associating with the processing that something in the processing was sitting on the aromatics, some flaw in the whole wet hull process. Maybe it's just the roast, or both. But somebody who doesn't like acidity, body is...
It's certainly smooth. It airs on smooth over acidity, which is wouldn't be unusual at all. But
I'm not sure I agree.
No?
Actually. Well, I mean, it's smooth in the sense, Kevin, that the acidity is muted, that the brightness is muted, that it doesn't have any citrusy brightness. I'm not sure that the body, the mouthfeel, isn't a little maybe thin, or not thin, chalky. That's a really bad word.
Chalky.
And
could be.
Yeah. I said a bad word and I coughed. That's my mother's ghost saying, "Don't say bad words, Kenny."
Wow. I like where this is going. This is interesting. Sounds like we're camping with the Scouts again when we're 10 years old.
Right.
Anyone know any spooky stories?
Something I think is bringing this coffee down, I'm afraid. In there is a complex and interesting coffee, but the roast, something in the processing, maybe even something in the packaging, something's dampening it and simplifying it. But again, you're right. If somebody doesn't like acidity, says, "Well, I like a Sumatra that doesn't," forget that joke. Something. I started and I didn't know where to go with it. But,
It's okay.
But somebody who doesn't like brightness would consider a coffee like this mellow, perhaps, because it. Kevin, I think we're going to have to identify it.
Let's identify
pick
it.
up
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this will explain a lot, Ken. Is that good? Or do you want it over more?
Oh, it's an aged Sumatra.
Yes.
Well, you tricky dude, I know what you were looking for your notes.
I was kind of proud to have found it.
Well, the aging is what's sitting on, on the coffee, this dampening element. As I've said in other shows, aged Sumatras typically are held in warehouses, special warehouses, usually in Singapore, for about 5 years or so. And the bags are carefully rotated so that there's no off tastes develop. But the profile changes, and I'm not sure that I like this coffee. I think would be magnificent in a blend. I think we had an aged coffee in a mocha java blend, and yes. I think set off by a brighter and more assertive coffee, this would probably be lovely.
Yeah.
But as a straight coffee, I think it's a little flat, really.
Let's see what we have here. Ready to do the sniff test.
We call it sampling the aroma.
Sampling the aroma. Okay, not the sniff test. Yeah. Okay, I feel like a dog at the airport, you know. Professor David, your luggage. Actually, you and I are probably two of the best smelling passengers because I don't know about you, I always have coffee samples.
Well, this is a very poised, balanced cup, isn't it?
Yeah.
Low toned, but has good resonance and depth.
Yeah, very different.
Great balance.
Yeah, it's got just a little of everything I think we've gone through today that we like.
Yeah, I'm getting some like clover flowers, kind of very delicate flower.
Yeah, and then there's something underneath it, caramel.
Yeah, there's a lot of, what did you call?
Caramel, I got underneath
caramel,
it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Just nice.
A very clear and pleasing caramel. I might go pistachio on this one.
Yeah, I think it's got much more pronounced, yeah.
There's a lot of stuff going on that I'm having trouble getting my recollections wrapped around here.
Yeah, pulling each one out.
Because it's very closely knit, layered aromatics, but there's a lot going on.
Yeah, they're sure working together.
Now I got onto that fresh leather thing. I'm getting...
Yes, and this is the non-vegan leather.
Right. Certainly I'm getting spice of some kind. I got on the white peppercorn, I might call that herbs. Parsley, just a plain old parsley.
Parsley's nice. Parsley is really nice. Yeah.
I'm even wondering if there's a kind of a hint of cilantro. The caramel sort of knits it all together in a way.
It sure does.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah. Oh.
Lovely.
Are you tasting?
You ready to
give
the cup a go? In the old days, when people would complain about taints all the time, defects and taints, we would diss this coffee as being fermented. Today, of course, since we're tasting coffees, anaerobic coffees that
are
taste
purposely
like cologne.
Fermented.
Cologne.
It has aftershave nuance, that I love so much.
So I think we can't get down on it, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And probably that little bit of ferment is what adds to the profile in a lot of the Sumatras that people enjoy.
Oh yeah, I know roasters that are, it's a source of pride to them that they get away from that. It, of course, as an end user, it doesn't bother me at all. Now
that I'm into the cup, it's not that prominent either. If this is the full range of a profile, I think this one is like this, very dense with a lot going on. It's a satisfying, certainly you could call it balanced.
It's a Sumatra. I mean, there's...
Yeah, you could call it deep, has good resonance. Rich would be another word, that the generic kind of word that people apply to some. And this one is definitely rich.
It's rich,
I think.
Yeah. I know we don't taste with cream, but if someone had this cup and likes cream in their coffee, I think it'd carry through, support the.
Really?
I think so.
Well, people often use whitener, cream, or milk in their coffee because they don't like the acidity. The acidities that
well, that's not a problem here at all.
Dairy mutes the acidity and
Yeah.
sweetens the cup, but I don't feel that this one really is particularly needs that.
No, I don't think it's calling for it, but I think if someone likes it, it'll still taste through. It supports it. It's got the density in that, again, narrow band.
Yeah, again, it's a very good. Dense is a good word. We use that negatively sometimes at Coffee Review, because meaning that it's a heavy body, but it's not as live as it should be. So this has very nice mouthfeel, I think. Very good. I'm trying to get a word hung onto the fruit. I guess I'd go cherry again. It's not tart at all. The fruit, whatever the fruit is, it has no tartness.
Yes, nice sweetness.
So
cherry is probably the one.
I mean, I suppose you could say plum.
I might say plum, yeah.
But it's a kind of a low-toned stone fruit.
It is good.
Not distinctive like apricot.
No.
Not sweet like peach. So I guess I would go with black cherry or plum.
I think cherry is probably.
But I really think that the mouthfeel and the round structure, the coherent, tight structure of this, and the very pleasing mouthfeel are the distinguishing characteristics, and really make this a very, in a way, quietly distinctive coffee. I really can see some people who buy Sumatras because they like to drink coffee black, but they don't like bright or assertive profiles, who'd really love this coffee.
It's their cup, yeah. This is very good for them.
And the finish is very nice. It sort of gathers nuance as you keep drinking the coffee, right?
Yeah, this is really low bitterness. I mean,
yeah, very low bitterness, low acidity, but there's enough of that. There's enough brightness to keep it vibrant. Notice that the finish doesn't last very long. I remember in A, for example, the finish just kept ringing, and here it's just, I mean, not unpleasant, but it just sort of stops at a certain point.
Okay,
are we ready for a reveal?
Let's
on a processing method, I'm going to go for wet hold again.
Oh wow! It says right here we go. Dennis, go for here. What do I want? A little more this way? Oh, how about this way? Yeah, I'm sorry, I had it right.
Well, it's ace, but that doesn't say anything about the processing method. I think it says wet hold. This robust wet hold coffee excites with blackberry and green raisin sweetness. Yeah, blackberry's a good call. I don't know why we didn't think of it.
I couldn't think of what it was I had exactly. It's close, but
and gently tart acidity, balancing the earthy, herbaceous, and savory notes common to the region. Common to the processing method, Guy, not the region. But it's a good description, I think. It glamorizes it in a persuasive and genuine way. Kim Westerman, who does a lot of our reviewing, colleague of Jason and mine, and actually managing editor at Coffee Review, she uses herbaceous constantly. It used to drive me crazy, but I just sort of accept it now. Because it's a favorite wine word. If you read wine descriptions, you'll run into herbaceous.
Yeah, herbaceous.
It's sort of like calling stone fruit. You know, it sort of
stone
gives
fruit
you a lot
is
of cover on what the herb is. Right.
Well,
but
Rich is also from the earliest days. I remember seeing Rich on every can of coffee. That's the richest kind. I think there was even one of the brands had a spokesperson.
100% Colombia, the richest coffee in the world, I think.
Richest coffee in the world, yeah.
This is quietly rich, all right.
Yeah, it is.
And
it's very nice.
In this case, herbaceous is probably good. It has some herbal character, but nothing, sweet herb, but nothing dominates.
Could be bodacious if it was, but it's not big enough to be bodacious. It's
I won't respond to that. A very nice, quiet, balanced, wet-hulled coffee. It's again what I'd call the contemporary or updated, refined wet-hulled coffee. Right.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we go back to the nose.
Mm-hmm.
Can we get petrichor?
Petrichor. What is petrichor? What is that?
No, I told you what petrichor.
Well, tell me again, because I've got a mind like a sieve.
The petrichor is a word for the odor of earth.
Yes. Right out. It gets wet.
Been heated in the sun, and then you get the rain. And if it's a heavy rain, you get the petrichor is very brief. But if it's a light rain, it goes on and on and on.
Yeah, so very spring-like to me. I associate it with spring. I'm sure it happens all times of year except the dead of winter. But even
so it's a subtle kind of earth-related note, where perception stops and conjecture or projection starts is a hard line to define in coffee aromas. I could find some petrichor.
You've got me imagining it, if nothing else, too. In another life, I was a radio actor.
Kevin, as soon as I sampled the aroma on this one, I got maple syrup, and I'm having trouble getting off of it into other things, other possibilities.
Yeah, it does have that. Interesting.
It's a very sweet aroma.
Mm-hmm.
We're not smelling sugar. We're not tasting sugar. It's association with other sweet aromatics.
I suppose all the coffee tastes are analogs for real taste.
Yeah. Well, not analogs because there are mechanical sniffers that people have devised. They haven't had much success so far to try to prove that coffee is from a certain region, for example. And so it smells samples of various aromatic compounds and does a computerized, I've seen one, profile. So of course, I broke it. Before I left, I kicked it because I don't want to I don't want to be eliminated by a machine.
You radical. Yeah, right. I know.
The guy
upstart.
Left to do something, and I just sort of banged it around a little bit. Yeah.
Is it a robot? Is it the idea
that
it's
just
mechanical,
a machine
like
that
a C-3PO?
It produced a diagram with peaks of certain aromatic notes. It wasn't very, well, let's not talk about it, actually. I just want to go back and break it, so just in case.
Whoever roasted this is definitely aiming at making it sweet.
Yeah, it's very sweet. The fruit is low-toned, not citric, but delicious and complex. And here I want to go some kind of berry. Blackberry, I think definitely. Maybe some blueberry. That sort of low-toned, round kind of fruit aromas. Of course, caramel. Very nice, round, sweet caramel. Chocolate behind it. behind and around the caramel is the chocolate. Lovely. And there is there's a little spark to the fruit. You know, maybe you tried on one of the previous samples, you tried out raspberry.
Raspberry.
I think we could call raspberry for this one because it has a little spark of acidity, of tartness. I've been eating a lot of pears for breakfast, and so
pears, yeah.
Maybe that's why I'm getting pear, but I'm getting some pear in this. The fruit is dominant, yeah. I'm thinking a kind of a white chrysanthemum, maybe.
Oh, that's interesting.
That wood notes are really tantalizing me. There's something in there that I would associate with aromatic wood, but not sure. Redwood, maybe?
Redwood, yeah, it does have a little woodiness like that.
Yeah, it's a pleasant.
It's pleasant.
It kind
it's
of
pleasant.
Anchors the profile, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I could dive right into this one. It's a very nice.
Well, let's.
Very deep, complex, quiet, but very enveloping and complex. Low acidity here.
Yeah. Really.
Almost too low for me.
Yeah.
I wish there were maybe a little bit of a spark, more of a spark in the cup. A very full body, but maybe slightly inert. With a little bit of astringency. This might be darker roasted, huh?
I think it's a little darker roasted
than the others.
Yeah. Certainly not getting into the territory of Peet's or Starbucks, but definitely it's
no.
I would call it a solid medium roast. I wonder if Jason around to any Agtron possibility.
Yeah, we
of
could do
Agtron.
that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
As I keep tasting this, I'm a little disappointed. I think I keep wanting more. I was getting more in the aroma, but
the aromas.
The cup, it doesn't quite draw me in. I want more. Or if it does draw me in, I'm in there and I'm looking for more.
A lot is lost between the aroma and the tasting in the cup.
Yeah.
Nothing that bothers me that's in it, it's what's not in it.
It lacks high notes.
It does indeed.
Yeah.
It's
in fact, if I were to use this musical metaphor, it's in the middle ranges.
It's lacking in the upper ranges or the middle ranges, or are you saying it's
no,
predominates
upper
in the middle? Yeah.
It's mostly in the middle ranges of taste, right?
To put this in audio terms, it would be like dynamic mics are known for this. They have a solid middle range capture, but they don't capture the high frequencies, and they really don't. Oh, well, the low frequencies they're fine with, but not the high frequencies. That's what's missing, and that's, I'd say, this.
Again, like a couple of these other cups, they feel like there's something there that wants to rise, that's being subdued or held back or rounded. Just let's be positive and say it's being rounded in the coffees. It must be another wet hulled.
Yeah, they did not identify it as.
You don't have a package for it?
I do. Let me. Ready to bring it out?
Sure.
And how about this, Dennis? Is that good for you?
Well, it doesn't say much, but whatever it is, I can read. It's 100% Arabica. That's good.
That's
medium roast, Sumatra.
Yeah.
And it's a roaster that's been around a long time, since 1926.
Oh, they're from Spain.
They're a Spanish roaster?
Yeah, roasting it in the U.S. now. He later expanded operations to the fertile lands of Veracruz, Mexico, and the business grew. And now, I believe they're in Texas. I think I don't know if it says on here where they. Oh yeah, Houston, Texas, and Houston, of course, is a big receiving port for coffee.
Right. Well, so we don't know much about it, but I'm pretty sure it's a kind of a pretty solid, classic, rather cleanly expressed wet-hulled coffee, washed and wet-hulled coffee.
Okay, let's talk about the Agtrons first.
Well, A is light roast. Whole bean Agtron 60. Remember, we thought it was a bright cup. We did feel that it had the substantial mouthfeel, but it was brighter, a little more astringent, perhaps, than the later cups. B is a flat-out medium.
Okay.
56 for B.
Okay.
It drops down to 46 for C.
Oh, okay. That's
And
the
46 is just at the edge of a dark edge of medium.
Yeah.
That's the one we called roast most clearly, wasn't it? D is 49. That's
it goes up, creeps up
full
a little
on
bit.
medium. Medium, or maybe slightly darker. That's the one with a little bit of ferment. So that's a distraction.
Right.
And E is the darkest. 42.
42. Yeah. Okay. Well.
But that's executed in a way so that we're not getting clear roast notes. At least I'm not. All of these would probably be more exciting to me. Almost all of them, except A, would be exciting if they were slightly lighter roasted. But again, one of the things we didn't talk about in relationship to Sumatras generally is that they have a tradition of being dark roasted.
May I share what I've heard a roaster tell me about that? I mentioned that once, and I said his coffee was not like that, and it was a compliment. And he said, they tend to roast until it looks better. And he said, Sumatras are not the prettiest coffees. And he said, sometimes people roast it to make it look more uniform. He said, I think that they sometimes roast for that. And really, he said, I think they're killing what, acidity is in there that I don't want to get rid of.
I suppose that could be, because they tend to be well known to be rough-looking coffees. On the other hand, I think that the whole processing, wet hulling, is being conducted with more care and these days, so perhaps that's not true. My feeling is just that the Sumatra became popularized by Alfred Peet, and then later so promulgated throughout the globe by Starbucks, that it became associated with a dark roast style. I mean, people looking for a kind of a roasty edge to their Sumatras, because that's part of the brand, that informal brand, Sumatra, certain kind of taste profile. So that's my feeling about the darker roast. I think some roasters feel that they can bring out more chocolate in the profile if they do it a little darker and so on. It is interesting that the A, which is the only genuinely light roasted, definitely has a acidity that the others lack. Okay, here we go.
Okay, let's, here I go. I'm
surrounded
surrounded by
Again.
coffees. Yeah, we're going to taste them again.
Yes. The Great Wall of Coffees.
The Great Wall of Coffees, yes. I just had a little taste of A, and it just confirms. I just was smelling roast, and this
so it's light roasted.
No roast.
Yeah.
A lot to be said for light roasts.
I regret to say this, because it looks like I'm a third wave apologist, but the lightest roast that I like the best.
And I don't consider myself a third wave apologist. I've really been critical of. I was just saying I was critical for a long time about too light roasted. I wrote an article once, Ken, titled "Is this coffee or sushi?"
Yeah, I remember reading a piece of satire that was written by somebody in the industry maybe 10 years ago or 8 years ago. And he was making this elegant argument for why we shouldn't even be roasting coffee, how much better it is when it's green. A is a lovely rendition of the coffee, I think. And now that it's cooled a little bit, of course, I'm not getting the stringent character to the acidity that I was getting when it was hot. It's beautiful. It's a real tribute to the new clean Sumatra, the wet hulled, the new clean wet hulled Sumatra. It has the complexity and depth, and it has pretty good mouthfeel, solid mouthfeel too, that we associate with the type, but it's alive, really alive. The roast kept all the characteristics of the coffee alive and intact. So that would be, unfortunately, that would be because I don't want to be typecast, but I'd have that as one. Two, I'm not sure about, but...
Oh, man. Well...
I guess it's number 2.
I kind of think so, too.
From there, in the C, the rubber, as it cools, the rubber has really come up. I love to support the idea of aging coffees, and it's wonderful that it's coming from the producer. The producer is aging it on site.
Oh, great.
It's all a wonderful story, but it's a little too flat for me, so I'm putting that last. And the C goes to number 5, and then...
I've got the Valentine coffee. We matched there. And here, for me, it's real simple. Combined with listening to you and combined by my own feelings that are fairly strong, A is no doubt number 1. B, the Clatch is number 2. I'm still getting some good stuff in it. Let me taste it one more time. Hold on.
It's very nice. It's just sort of limited.
But it's not number 1, but it's number 2. Third one is, to me, the Ache from Valentine Roasters in Milwaukee. I think this one, the Aldecoa, is nicely done, really, I think, but yeah, there's not enough there for me. And then the last one, no issue with first and last, the aged Sumatra. And yes, I was so happy when I found an aged Sumatra.
The great thing about specialty coffee now is that there's a lot of people at Origin going to meetings and events, and there's a lot of excitement about doing original things at Origin, and I think that is wonderful. People, as this goes on, the experiments will get more and more refined. I'm thinking about naturals when the idea of doing fine coffee naturals, in other words, dry processing coffees that would normally be wet processed, started. We had some stinky samples at Coffee Review. I mean, they just were half rotten. And I mean, it was sort of, you could say, you could find chocolate in the middle of all the rot, but they're pretty bad. But that stopped because eventually the industry got more and more skillful. Or we got dried out naturals too that had been dried too quickly and gotten kind of flat. But it's all good. It's all good, and I'd really like to encourage that producer to keep experimenting with.
All coffee's variable. It's like produce in some. It is really. But again, I'm also still looking for that elusive Sumatra that's in my imagination of my memory bank.
That's very good. Very good, Kevin. Yeah, I mean, that's well said. Yeah, I mean, you said idealized, that maybe we've idealized that. I don't sense here any It's true. I'm not getting here the ideal Sumatra that I have in my imagination or my memory. I don't have it. These are perhaps slightly too tame to match that memory.
No, there's something really in your face in a cool way about the coffee that I'm remembering that I think you're remembering. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more shows like this.